And we're live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Here we are. Welcome, welcome. It is Saturday morning. It is It's Saturday, April 3rd.
How'd you get to September?
I have no idea. It's time traveled for a second.
Yeah, there you go.
It's April 3rd, 2021. We're coming up on a 1-year anniversary of doing this show.
Yeah.
I think we've only missed 2 Saturdays. So we'll have 50 totally done, I believe. When we do a 1-year anniversary, maybe the 1-year anniversary will be a drive around. They
used to say 50 in the can.
Yes, we'll have 50 in the can, and I think by the time we hit our 1-year anniversary, I will have had at least my first vaccination.
Oh, when are you getting yours?
We're scheduled for May 4th.
Excellent.
Because they're opening it up on April 15th, and we got an appointment. If we get something sooner, we'll take it, but at least we're locked in.
Yeah, you get, on April 15th, it used to be that's when the IRS would jab you. Now.
Exactly. They pushed it back this year, and now, yes, we're all going to be available.
Still a jab from the government, but.
Welcome to Clutch Vaccination Show. We do have a very interesting topic to start the show off with. But first, of course, we have to do the opening. So here we go. It would help if I did the right opening. Here's the real opening.
It's time to start your engines and be part of the conversation. You can always ask the experts, Raffi and Dan Rosenberg, because it's now time for Clutch Radio. The show starts now.
Yeah. So yesterday, a friend of mine my friend Bert, who hopefully is watching, sends me a message. He just bought a car, sight unseen, from across the country, had it shipped to him. And he sent me a message. He wanted to talk about wheels. And it made me realize that wheels are a huge business.
Oh, yeah.
And there's things that people just they're not aware of until they're aware of them. Nobody pays attention to their wheels until they scrape a curb, or until they go to trade their car in, and the dealer's like, well, we got to replace these wheels, or those aren't original. And the Lexus he bought came with chrome wheels, and the one he currently has the aluminum, like the painted aluminum, the nice, not chrome wheels.
Right.
And those have hit every curb. He said he's hit every curb in Los Angeles on those. And the center cap of the ones that he bought, they don't have the Lexus logo. So he immediately assumed, oh, these are aftermarket wheels. It's possible they're not. It's possible that somebody lost that center logo on one or two of them, and it's cheaper to buy plain ones than it is to buy the original Lexus ones. So they just slapped on generic ones that don't have a logo on it. Or he's got aftermarket wheels. One of the two is possible. But he was willing to go out and buy new wheels. And I'm like, well, no, you could refurbish them. I mean, there's companies out there that for anywhere from $50 to $200, depending on how bad they are, they can do these. And I'm going to pull up a picture here. So obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, I apologize. But
we can describe it for you, though.
Yes. What you're seeing here, let me zoom in on the before. There's curb rash.
Oh, yeah. That's substantial.
Yeah. That is, you drive along, you hit a curb. Now, there are tires you can buy that actually have more rubber sticking out a little bit over the rim. Mm-hmm. It's a little wider. And this one kind of looks like it almost has that. And that'll kind of give you a little buffer.
Yeah, that's called a curb beading. So you can get tires that are profiled with a wider curb beading, beading. You're not
getting beaten on the curb.
Not a beating, not a T, but a D. And what that lip or edge does is it's designed to buff the curb and protect the wheel a little bit more. It does not really prevent curb rash because you're moving, 3,000 to 6,000 pounds into a curb. The rubber is going to absorb up some of it, but eventually you will have the wheel hit that curb edge. You can also install wonderfully 1950s curb feelers, which are these tiny little metal spring things that stick out. And when you they stick out about 6 inches, and when you hear it scrape the curb, that's how you know to pull the wheel away and not bump into the curb. And it's been a while since I've seen those on cars, but growing up, my brother and I used to see them in the parking lot, and it was our favorite thing to go over and then flick it with your hand and have it go.
Yes, I'm trying to pull up a picture of some nice curb feelers.
Yeah. Now I derailed your comment. You were talking about the repair work on the wheel, and you can see this one's pretty badly gored. And then
real quick though, they're your curb feelers.
Yeah.
And it just gives a little, hey, we're here by the curb, so don't go too far in.
That's right.
And that right there, by the way, is what you call a $200 car with $3,000 rims.
There you go.
Which I never understood. Anyway, so I've been studying this a little bit because I have a little project car I'm working on. We'll talk about that more in the future. And it's got a little bit of curb rash. And I watched an online tutorial about it and how, you can sand it down. You can use metal body filler and, smooth them out, and then you prime them, and then you paint them, and then you clear coat them, and they look brand new. And these companies that do it, he mentioned one called Dr. Wheel, no relation to Dr. Laugh, although we did go to fake medical school together. He said, he doesn't do chrome wheels because obviously you can't do this with chrome because you have to paint them when you're done. I mean, you could redip them, I guess, in chrome, and that gets very expensive. At that point, you might as well buy new wheels. But the fixed version of this wheel, I mean, it's pretty nice.
Sure. And one of the things they'll do is, depending on the material, you can remove the tire, you can chuck the wheel into the lathe, and then you can spin the wheel. And with cutters, you can cut down the edge to a slightly different profile to where you average out the scraping, because most of the scrapes are going to be about 1/16 of an inch, and the wheel bead edge will have some of that material. The other thing they'll do is, depending again on the material, they can fill it with some sort of metal filler, and then they can grind down the filler and blend in. Again, a lot of work. This is for a set of wheels that are going to be several $100s to replace. But most cases, because aftermarket wheels are so inexpensive, most people just don't even bother, and they just replace their wheels. But this is a very important point, because a fair number of aftermarket wheels are not nearly as good the quality as the wheels manufactured by your automobile manufacturer. They are not subject to the same safety and durability standards, and oftentimes, especially low pressure cast wheels that are chrome plated, are much more fragile. And you can even, if you read carefully, you'll see that they'll state specifically these types of wheels are not designed for high-speed highway use, and they're designed specifically for limited show purpose use only. Especially these wheels that you see that are enormous. They're tall wheels, big profile wheels with very thin hubs on them. The best aftermarket wheels are ones that are made with alloy centers that are welded into DOT approved hoops. And that is the best way to construct a custom wheel. I've constructed a couple of those sets for a number of different cars. I've also done cast alloy wheels. Cast alloy wheels are very hard to make correctly and properly because it's quite a bit of processing to do that. So if you do buy wheels from a wheel company, make sure they're a well-known wheel manufacturer. They've got a history of making high-quality wheels, or do yourself a favor and price wheels from the manufacturer or the dealer, because oftentimes Lexus, Ford, Chevrolet, whatever the car company, you can literally go to their parts supply and order your wheels, and what you end up paying for them oftentimes will be the added insurance that your car is properly outfitted. Once again, like with manufacturer recommended tires, wheels and tires are a key component of your car's stability, your brakes, and your overall safety. So you don't want to mess too much going outside of the parameters of those multi-million-dollar engineering specifications that have been determined by professional engineers.
Yeah, and there are tons of brands out there, obviously.
Yeah.
These are just some that Discount Tire just put up their websites first when they came up. American Racing I've heard of.
Yes, a long-standing company.
That's about the only one on this entire list I've ever heard of.
Yeah, there are a couple of that. Most wheel companies, again, it used to be you'd go, like if you go to the SEMA show, there's an entire floor dedicated to just people that manufacture wheels. And most of them are low pressure cast wheel, I believe it's a Zamac that they use for their low pressure castings. And they're manufactured in China, and the actual casting itself is a lump of metal that gets hot molded into a tool and then is polished, finished, and then spun on a low speed spinner to check for overall weight and distribution and all. Then it gets shipped. These are nowhere near the type of tests that a company like American Racing or BBS or other high-quality wheel manufacturers that do this type of testing. So if you're going to buy from another company that does show-type wheels, make sure that you check ahead of time that these wheels are DOT approved, that they can be used on the highway, and that they meet the manufacturer's specifications for your car. Otherwise, go and buy directly from the dealer or from an authorized wheel manufacturer.
Now, I would suggest, seeing how well these repair companies have done, and I've seen some, when I had dealership clients, I would go there and there was a mobile guy that would come, pop the wheel off the car, and he'd put it in his truck, and they do all the work, and they put them. You couldn't tell it wasn't a brand new wheel. Yeah. It might be better if instead of going out and buying aftermarket wheels, to buy a pair of used wheels, or the wheels on your car, or the wheels on the bus, which do go round and round. If you get those totally refurbished, you're going to have pretty much brand new wheels, because the scrapes are not structural. They're not really structural damage. I mean, obviously, if there's a huge, gouge, or there's something that's going to keep the tire from staying on properly, you don't want those. But you could go to a junkyard. You could go to a pick and pull and get a set of wheels that might have a lot of curb rash and fix them up.
Yep.
And one of the videos I watched, it showed how to do it yourself. And what was really cool was they never took the tire off. They used index cards around the tire, between the tire and the wheel. They just kept putting individual index cards until they overlapped them until everything was covered. And it was better than taping it off, because the index cards went into the channel between the rubber and the wheel. So you weren't painting your tire, because there's nothing worse than seeing a tire with like silver spray paint all over it. I thought it looks like a fun project. I would guess if you have any painting skills at all and you can take a wheel off a car, probably 2 hours per wheel, you could redo each one of your wheels yourself.
Yeah. If you decide you're going to tape off your tire because rubber is not necessarily the most grippy for tape, a good way to do that is like you said, with the index cards, stuff them in, because that creates a paint dam. Another way to do it is to use a hot glue and glue all the way around the edge, and then smooth it out, and then you can peel off the glue. It comes off almost like a sheet in a tire shape. It'll peel off because it doesn't really stick to the tire itself. There are a number of ways to do it, but I did want to bring up one thing, Dan, and that is that when you get curb rash on your wheel, you are modifying the weight of the wheel, because you're removing metal from it. It scrapes off, and even though you don't see it, some bits are landing in the curb there. You also so you've modified the balance on the wheels, so it'll affect the balance of your tire. Then it also will affect the alignment, because that bump will sometimes cause your alignment to come out of alignment. And
so you should get your wheels balanced and your car aligned.
Yes, if you have excessive curb rash, and then again, going to the junkyard, is a great way to go because you can actually wheel search in junkyards and find wheels that match your wheels, and make sure that they're not directional, because sometimes right side and left side wheels are made, and then you can get the ones that'll match your car, and you'll know that they'll be in pretty good shape. If they come with tires, extra benefit. If they're still in good shape, you get the tires too. Most junkyards won't take the tire off. They'll sell you the wheel and tire as a combination.
Right. And here's an example of the card being used, the index cards being shoved in between. And you can see it. It really does make a clean area.
Mm-hmm.
Although they didn't tape off the little air stub.
Oh, the valve
stem. The name of it. Valve stem. Oh my God. The air hose stump. Oh. There was somebody that did say that, they were letting people know, that conspiracy theorists, that, the government has installed little GPS antennas in all their tires, and they should cut those off immediately.
Oh, yes.
Those little stems. So
there you go.
Yes. And if you have a green one, that means that you are using solar power. No, if you have a green one, that means there's nitrogen in your tire.
Yes. The theory behind the green valve stem is that you take your car to a tire shop and they will sell you nitrogen filled tires. So you get new tires and they say, would you like nitrogen filled instead of plain old regular air? And the idea here is that the nitrogen molecule is larger than the standard sort of mixture of oxygen molecules that are being forced in. And so the larger molecules have a harder time breaking through small openings. And so the idea being that nitrogen-filled tires maintains optimum pressure for a longer period of time. No one has done tests to prove whether or not this is true over long periods of time, but theoretically it is a good idea because it in theory could prove to be true. But most people, and they put the green caps or stems on the tire to warn others, do not fill with regular air, there's nitrogen in here. But if you put regular air inside a nitrogen-filled tire, it's perfectly fine. It will dissipate and sort of remove its effectiveness rate with the larger nitrogen molecule.
And there were people that used to believe that you had to take out your winter air and put in spring air, and then take out your spring air and put in summer air. There were tire shops that were charging people to change their air each season. Have you heard of that scam?
There's a scam for everything. It makes sense. If you don't know enough about a car, you bring your car in for fluid changes, right? So no, we need to change the oil. We need to change the brake fluid. We need to change this, change. And before you know it, they're changing the wiper blades. And they said, well, we should probably change the air in your tires. And to somebody who wouldn't necessarily know any better, it sounds like a reasonable thing. Well, okay, I guess the air could get stale. And somebody at the counter would say, well, your house is constantly circulating air. You open windows and things. It's a healthy thing to do, right? We should do it for your tires. And some people might say, you know what, that's okay. So they charge you $25, whatever it is. But a lot of companies still will throw in a lot of extras when you bring your car in for service. And oftentimes, if you don't carefully check and carefully go over all of those things that are being done, they will take your money. That is their job. It is their job to take your money. Some do it reputably, and some sort of, walk the fence.
And some outright lie. Some just lie.
Some outright lie. And sometimes shop owners don't know what's going on with their workers, and a worker will want to build up their billing. So they'll sell more stuff that maybe isn't 100% necessary.
Yeah. And when you go to the dealership, the service writer that you meet as you pull in, those are salespeople typically. And yes. I know a lot of salespeople that were selling cars that end up becoming service writers because they made more money that way.
Yeah.
Because they had a constant flow of customers, and, they would say, hey, your cabin air filter is due for a change, which it might be. There's nothing wrong with changing your cabin air filter. Hey, new windshield wipers, might as well throw those on while you're here.
Right.
Might as well rotate your tire. There's certain things that you should do anyway, but a lot of times they suggest things that might not necessarily be needed at the time.
Look, and you're captive. Your cars go, well, we're going to have your car here for 3 hours. You might as well do the X and the Y and the Z while you're here. So, So it makes sense. But if you think about it, you go to your doctor to get a broken arm set and put in a cast. You probably don't want him doing an eyeball checkup on you at that time as well, or deciding to remove a tooth that might be bothering you. So with your car, if you take it to the dealer and it's going there for X thing that needs to be repaired, if you're there to get an alternator fixed, be careful about how they entice you to spend more money while you're there.
Yeah. Dan in the comments says, paint is now peeling on my aftermarket NASCAR style painted, powder coated steel wheels. What are the odds they can be refinished or suspect likely integrity issue on spokes from rust? Or suspect
Yeah, so that's a great question, Dan. The answer is that the powder coating can be either media blasted off or chemically removed. Maybe even a combination of, and then you can have them repowder coated. If the actual wheel itself has not been damaged, then that's a good thing to do. It's interesting that the powder coating is getting some rust showing through. So that's interesting because normally powder coating prevents that. It's possible that the powder coating might have been a little thin in some areas, but you can certainly have those refinished. And I don't think they're extremely expensive. They're certainly cheaper than buying a new set of wheels. But as Dan suggested, if you were going to paint them yourself, you would have to sand down a lot of that powder coating or media blast the powder coating down to where the surface is now more porous and willing to accept some paint, and then paint it with regular paint. But then again, even if you rattle can spray your wheels, you're going to want to be careful because the durability of aerosol spray paint is not nearly as robust as powder coating.
All right. He says he's not sure if it's original paint or powder coat. It could be original paint.
Yeah, and powder coating is stronger than typical paints. Aerosol-based paint is not nearly as durable as powder coating. And you can have your wheels powder coated, and there's quite an array of finishes available from professional wheel refurbishing companies that will offer you a number of different colors and finishes.
And also, you can do that plastic dip too on your wheels if you really want to do something crazy. It's temporary. You could spray paint them and make them black or make them red or purple or multicolored, and then you can peel it off later.
Yeah, you can dip them. You can decal dip them. You can decal dip so that the wheels look like carbon fiber. You can get random geometric patterns on your wheels. There's all kinds of stuff, and that decal dip is an amazing process to watch.
Yeah. Now, going back to my friend that had the Lexus with the standard wheel centers, I just jumped on eBay real quick, and for $19, you can get a set of chrome Lexus with the logo that'll fit your car. Looks like they're 62 millimeter, which you have to measure in millimeters to figure that out, but they should fit your car.
And important to note is that for aftermarket manufacturing, you can make the wheel because the wheel design is not protected by Lexus, but the center caps, because they have their logo, are protected. So the company that's making these either must have a license to make them, or they are making them without Lexus's approval, and buying them would not necessarily make you a subject to the legalities associated with unlawful manufacture. But this company, if they were to be found or caught or captured for making, there are significant penalties. This is effectively like movie piracy, where a company decides to manufacture product that uses a brand or a logo without permission, and they're manufacturing and selling it without a license.
These do say remanufactured, so it's possible that these are just, they go to junkyards and collect them and spray paint them and make them look new.
That's another way that they get around it, is they say, we didn't make these, we only refurbished them.
Right.
And there's no legality associated with individual collection of older parts, refurbishing and reselling, because the original manufacturer built the part. That's something that you see all the time, particularly with automotive emblems. They get remanufactured or recloisonnated or re-enameled or replated and sold that way.
And for the conversion, 62 millimeters is 2.5 inches, just in case.
There you go.
That was part of our discussion this morning was, so I don't know millimeters. So we have to convert it and measure it. So
one of the best tools I have is called a dial caliper. And a dial caliper is a really helpful tool for anyone who wants to do anything with dimensions. And I keep it handy here by my desk. This is what a dial caliper looks like. And it used to have a dial on it in the center that was round. And what happens is, as you move it, you get a reading that shows the spacing between these two components. And so that tells you exactly what is happening. So you can measure anything both on the outside or on the inside. So both those points work very, very well for measuring.
Very nice.
And it's very, very helpful. You not only get this setting, you can even get millimeter, inches, and fraction equivalents as well.
Wow. So I see it's Pittsburgh brand, which means you got that at Harbor Freight Tools.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Which is, they've got some good stuff. They've got some crap stuff, but they also have some good stuff.
Harbor Freight makes quite a few of their tools, and they're very, I say, economically priced.
Yes. And Pittsburgh brand, which I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm a Pittsburgh brand, I guess.
You're a Pittsburgh brand.
I am. Adam in the comments says or asks, do you think the current chip shortage will cause car companies to just scrap productions of lower selling models until they can replenish?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think so. I think it's reasonable because if you're looking to save your margins and profits, you're going to dedicate limited resources to the products that are higher in return, and those are definitely less than the lower selling models. So those lower selling models have minimal to almost no profit margin. So if they're using chips that are similar to the ones that are getting higher profit margin, that's an entirely possible scenario. The challenge with doing something like that, however, is you've got this stuff sort of lined up in the assembly line. You've got parts, you've got pieces, you got everything. And if that line isn't running, that's a bigger problem for you because you need that volume to sustain the type of flow that's important for companies of automotive scale. So my guess is they probably won't do that, though it would be really interesting to see divisions fighting over who gets the chips.
And the chips are, there's some of them are just like even radio components or backup cameras. I mean, there's just certain things that they can't even, stuff that the manufacturer doesn't even make. They can't get those products right now because of the chip shortage. So it's just amazing how it's affecting also the used car market, which our dealer friend Ray Pepper says, here's his update, brutal and getting more brutal. He's almost completely sold out. He usually has 40 to 50 cars. Right now he has 11 cars in stock.
Yeah, used car, again, the used car market just continues to be phenomenal. And I have to say, Ray, that I think a big part of the used car market is because people have been staying home. And I think that typically what's happened is people have just, they're driving their cars. They're very busy. There's lots going on. They're done with their car. They just drive it over to a dealer and say, take this car and give me another one. So the volume of vehicles going through dealerships and dealer auctions has been halted because people stay home. They keep their car. They decide, well, if I'm going to be staying home, I'll just sell my car on Craigslist. I'll sell it on eBay. I'll list it on such and such.
Tread.com.
I'll tread.com my car. And then off it goes through sort of a private party sale or through an executed sale through an online entity. And it makes it harder for dealers to get those vehicles. You can, as a dealer, you can volume shop and get some vehicles at essentially wholesale price, but you got to do some really hard work. And the amount of time you spend to find, a good used car at wholesale price through private party is challenging, but it can be done. I know some dealers that are making a lot more effort to do that now, simply because of what you're talking about. They're just running out of inventory.
Yeah, another dealer friend of mine I spoke to yesterday, he had his highest month he's ever had in selling cars. We had a tread. We had one of our biggest months ever. And Ray does say he still has a Spider because it's still not for sale. We should do a weekly update of Ray Pepper's Spider for sale. Still not for sale. Ray mentions CarMax stock sold off on Friday earnings. Great earnings, but future guidance was skeptical. They call it the cost of future acquisitions and availability remains unstable. So even CarMax, who, by the way, they just announced that they bought Edmunds. Yeah. Edmunds.com, they owned a percentage of, and they just bought the rest of it. And they're doing online. This was the big killer. There were two killers when I had the cashforcars.com business going. And the two killers were when people would say, well, Kelley Blue Book says my car's worth this. And our standard response was, well, then call Kelley Blue Book and have them buy your car, since they say that's what it's worth. And they're like, well, what's their number? I'm like, well, I don't know, because they don't buy cars. They're a pricing guide. But then all of a sudden they started buying cars because they're part of the Auto Trader group. They're part of Cox Media, Cox Automotive. And they started doing Kelley Blue Book instant cash offers. So you could go to Kelley Blue Book, get an instant cash offer, take it to participating dealer. You were guaranteed that price, the Kelley Blue Book price. And so that hurt our business model. And then Carvana shows up, and Vroom and Shift and these online companies and Tread, and we'll buy cars online from you all day long. You have a car, here's the price. We'll come pick it up and put money in your bank. CarMax was always the place to go if you wanted to take your car in, get a free appraisal, and they would buy it on the spot. They just started doing online offers, which they never did before. That's the game changer to me, that CarMax can do online now. Because if you can do your entire appraisal online, and then you take it in to the local CarMax, and they just check to make sure everything you said was right, they're getting more cars. I saw in their auction this week, I think they have 260. They have a lot of cars at the local auction. They're going to start being, they could end up being a 300 car a week auction. And that's just 3 Seattle area locations that those cars are coming from. That's not even, all over the country. There are some in California. I just pulled up their site. In Laurel, Maryland, they have 1,059 cars in their auction on Monday. 1,059.
Wow.
Marietta, California, 1,206. And Puyallup, or Pull You Up, as some people say, Washington, 261 cars they're running through their auction on Monday. I mean, that's an amazing amount of cars that people are just, and all their cars, every car that they sell at their auction was purchased by an individual, or it was one they bought to sell themselves, and they were going, they bought it, something was wrong with the car, like, oops, and they don't take it back to the auction. They just sell at their own auction, and they might lose a few bucks. But yeah, as Ray says, they've been advertising big time. They'll buy their car. He even sold one to them, and the prices are pretty fair. They're not the best, but they're fast and easy. You go in, you leave with money.
And look, if you one of the things I recommend, and Ray, you might want to try this yourself, is take a week, and during that week, dedicate to searching 4 or 5 specific cars online for sale in private party, and put together a chart of the average price and the vehicles and all that stuff. And what I think you'll find is that many of those cars that are available online used to be available to you. You'd see them rolling through the auctions. Now, instead of paying typical wholesale prices, people are going to be asking more. But a cash, I'll buy it now price sometimes can motivate sellers, private parties, to just be done with it. You come and get it, bring it to the shop, and do your safety work, your tires, your brakes, and all the stuff that I know Ray is really thoughtful to do for his vehicles, and then put it up. You might have a lower margin, but at least you're continuing to replenish your dying inventory, which I think is one of the challenges that you have. If you're down to 11, that's a low number.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to have, there are dealerships that do 300-400 cars a month that are independent little dealers, and there are dealers that do 5 cars a month. And, some are profitable. The dealer that did the 400 cars might not have made any money. And the dealer that did 5 might have made money because he probably only has 1 or 2 employees, and that's all they're doing.
Yeah.
Here's what Ray says about doing private party stuff. dealing with owners' homes who can't find their title, or if it's in the brother's name. And yeah, personal sellers is hard. And the other thing you find a lot on Craigslist, and no offense to Craigslist or to Craig, sorry, Craig, I know you're not there anymore, but the flipping of cars illegally. So, I go on Craigslist, I find a car, or my neighbor's, got a car, and I'll give it to you for $1,000. Okay. So I pay the 1,000 and I grab the title, then I put it on Craigslist and I list it for 3,000. And then somebody comes to my house and they go, okay, I'll do for 2,500. And here you go. Well, this isn't your name. No, this, it's my grandmother's car. It's signed over. You can just go take the title.
Yeah.
That's illegal. That's flipping a car, curb stoning, they call it in some parts of the country. And in most states, you cannot sell a car that's not registered in your name. That's dealer activity. And if you do sell a car that's registered in your name, you can only do 4 per year in this state, in Washington at least, until you are doing what they consider dealer activity. And if you're doing a classic car, however, there is no limit there. Classic cars are not, once they're over 30 years old, that's like selling, a collector's Rubik's Cube. Here you go. This is a collector's Rubik's Cube. I can sell as many as I want.
It's considered a hobby. Classic car buying and selling is still considered a hobby. So the resources around it, and that's certainly acceptable. But again, you have to be very careful, because one of the reasons why you want to buy from a dealer for a car that you're going to be using on a regular basis is, they're professionals. They know what they're doing. They're familiar with the paperwork. They know the process. They know that when a car comes in and the tires are bald, you don't just change the tires. You look at the tires and go, well, look, the way this tire is wearing, you might want to do the alignment. Well, let's do the alignment. Let's check the brakes while the wheels are off. Look here, here's a cracked hose on the brake line. Let's replace that, because we don't want our customers going out a month later coming back and saying the brakes failed. Because those are the types of things. And that's why you pay a little bit more from a dealer, but it's added insurance to know that you're getting a vehicle that's safe and sound. And especially if you're going to put one of your kids in a car like that, a lot of people buy used vehicles for kids going to college. You want to get a car that's properly prepared.
Yes. And as Ray points out, the service he pays for at the auction is worth it, so he doesn't have to deal with title headaches. Also, you get arbitration when you buy cars at an auction, unless it's a complete as is. If the car, even if it's as is, if it says it runs and drives and you get there and it's completely dead, you don't have to take the car, because they did say it runs and drives. But if it's a green light car in the auction world, you can run it through a post-sale inspection, and any issue that's wrong with it, you can then either renegotiate with the seller, or you could walk away. You can't do that with a private party. Once you buy that car, you own it. So if you bought a car and the customer did something, they put some additive in to get the smoking to stop for 10 minutes while you were there, or they put a lot of lipstick on the pig. If you're a smart buyer, you can find that stuff. But even smart dealers, I've got some really good smart dealer friends that they bought a car and like, oh my God, I can't believe I got stuck with this car. It happens. Dan in the comments also asks, would the low availability help increase older classic car values?
To some extent, because if you think about, Dan, most of us, we grew up looking at classic cars. If we were kids in the 80s and 90s, thinking we want to buy a classic car, that was a car from the 50s or 60s. Well, young people growing up now are looking at a classic car. It's 2020. A classic car to them is something from the mid 90s. So, and if you look around, mid 90s cars are still on the road. They're driving around and people are using them and having fun with them, because they were made to last, certainly a lot more so than 50s and 60s cars. So low availability is increasing the price of older cars in general, as long as they're well maintained. For example, a 1990s Volvo wagon. If you find a manual shift Volvo wagon from 1990 something, you're going to pay a premium for that car, because if it's been well maintained and doesn't have enormously high miles, that's going to be a higher priced car, and it's going to push those prices up. An older Cadillac, for example, Cadillacs from the 90s that have been well maintained. Used to be able to buy those cars for very, very low money because they had such huge depreciation. But now those prices are coming up. And the reason why is because a lot of people see them and they look different from the Cadillacs that are out there now. And there are a lot of cars that you can no longer get, like a two-door personal luxury vehicle. Companies just don't make those cars anymore. And if you wanted a two-door Cadillac like an Eldorado, or you wanted something that was sporty, like remember the Thunderbird, for example, or a Lincoln Mark car, these were cars that they made quite a few of, and ones in very nice condition tend to sell for quite a bit. Just sold a 1991 Seville, Dan says. Yeah, and people like these cars because they are classics. A 1991 Seville is a 30-year-old car.
You can get collector plates on that thing. Can you imagine that? I mean,
That's
a 91 with collector plates?
Yeah, that's the ticket. There you go.
God, we're getting old. Yeah, my view of the classic car market right now is, we have our little Cars and Coffee group. We missed you yesterday, by the way, Raffi.
Yes.
But happy anniversary.
Thank you very much.
We found out, I didn't even realize it was your anniversary until Glenn told us on the Monday or the Thursday phone call. So is April 1st your anniversary?
No.
Okay.
Actually, our anniversary is actually April 27th, but we decided to celebrate in March simply because we had the opportunity to book this place not far from our home. So we drove out there. It was very safe. And we had, as best we could, we had a maskless anniversary.
Well, you had to eat some dinner at some point.
Yes, that's right. We did. So,
yeah, that would be mask. You're right. I understand what you're saying. Okay, because my wife's birthday is April 1st, and then when he said you were going for your anniversary, I'm like, wait, he got married on April Fool's Day? Of course, Raffi got married on April Fool's Day, but no, you didn't. Okay,
no,
good to know. We figured, maybe you asked your wife on April Fool's Day. If she said no, you said, I'm just kidding. April Fool's.
I'm kidding.
It wasn't real. So anyway, we were discussing, that classic cars right now, if you put money into a classic car 5 years ago, or you put money in the stock market 5 years ago, which would you have made more money on? You might have made more money on the car because they've really gone crazy lately.
Yeah, and it depends. It always, like with stocks, it's, well, you put money in the stock market. Well, which stock? So you put money into a classic car. Well, which car? And classic car values have gone up substantially over the past 5 years, enormously so. Excuse me, enormously so for certain cars, which have just become extremely popular, and people want them desperately. Almost any manual transmission car is considered highly sought after now, simply because companies aren't making manual transmission cars. And I actually had a friend ask me recently, they sent me an email. I said, I went looking for a car for my son to take to college. And we went to go see this one particular car, and we had neglected to ask whether it was an automatic or manual transmission. When we arrived there, it was a manual transmission. And both of us sat there looking at it going, what do we do? And so he asked me, he said, is it, a good thing for me to teach my son how to drive a manual transmission car? And 10, 15 years ago, my answer, as I'm sure yours was, Dan, was absolutely. Learn how to drive a manual, because you never know when there's an emergency, whether this, there's that, all that stuff. But now on a percentage basis, cars on the road, far few of them are manual transmission. Almost all are automatic transmission. And automatic transmissions, which used to be considered negatives in terms of fuel economy and things like that, that is just not the case. A really well dialed in computer controlled automatic transmission will give you much better fuel economy in the long run. They're performance oriented transmissions, so you can select different modes to vary the type of driving. And as Dan says, the manual transmission is the modern anti-theft device, which is probably true because most people jacking cars, they tend to be younger, and they probably have less experience with manual transmission cars. The only exception I will say for people that want to learn manual transmission is if you are going to valet cars, absolutely learn how to drive a manual transmission car, because you don't want to find a car that drives up that is manual transmission and you don't know how to drive it.
Yes. And I used to always say, with my son, I say, I want you to learn on a stick shift, because you don't have to take your test on a stick shift, obviously, but learn how to drive a stick shift because, in basketball, when I coach basketball, I always said man-to-man defense was like a stick shift and zone defense was like an automatic. If you know how to play man-to-man, you know how to play zone, but it doesn't work both ways. If you know how to drive an automatic, you don't automatically know how to drive a stick. And I only really wanted to learn how to drive a stick when I found out the DeLorean in Back to the Future was a stick shift. I'm like, I got to learn how to drive a stick now. I didn't realize they even made automatics, but they do. They did.
Well, the first cars I learned to drive on were manual. And, this was in the 70s. So they were everywhere. Yeah. And an automatic transmission was a high-priced option that you had to purchase when you bought a new car. So Volkswagens, Crosleys, Fords, all those get manual transmission. All my cars had, my Boss 302 was a manual transmission. All of them came with manual gearboxes, and you learned how to drive them. Now, granted, I didn't grow up in San Francisco. So if you live in an area where there's a lot of hills, manual transmission is challenging to use. So with classic cars, values of manual transmission classic cars, or even, non-classic cars, regular cars with manual gearbox, boy, they are hot ticket items. There's a Ferrari from the mid to late 90s that came with either manual transmission, 6-speed manual, or the paddle type shifter. And the variation in the price, a non-manual car would be 120 to 140,000, and a manual car would be 150 to 180,000.
Wow!
So that same cars with just that gearbox difference. And there are people who have bought manual gearbox and converted their car to manual, but the conversion, the box itself is 20,000, and the conversion is another 7,000 to 8,000, so close to $30,000 to convert your car.
Yeah, and then it's not original, so you want to find an original if you can. Adam in the comments says he used to work at an auto auction, didn't know how to drive a manual, and let's just say I had to wing it. Oh my God! I hope I didn't buy any of those cars from that auction.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're moving around an auction, though, it's basically get it in first, know how to do reverse, and know how to do first, because you're not driving that fast at an auction. You probably don't even need to get into second gear. Yeah,
and the hardest part with driving manual is first gear move out. That's the hardest part because it takes a little bit of timing. And what I've always done is, and I've taught a few people to drive on manual transmission, is I've just simply gotten out of the car and cranked up the idle on the carburetor so that it's already it's already idling a little bit higher, so that all they have to do, they don't have to press the gas, they just have to slowly pull the clutch up, and the idle moves the car out. So that's the practice, because most people push the gas pedal too hard and then they pull the clutch back too quickly, and
you're doing the jerking. Yeah, I mean the first gears, and every car is different too. Like sometimes it's a quarter of the way up, sometimes it's half the way. You learn with the car in first gear where exactly it is. And on hills, that handbrake is very handy.
Oh yeah, but it's another one of those things you got to coordinate when you're learning.
You just need a third hand. That's all.
Yeah, that's the same way. By the way, I taught my both daughters, to drive in the automatic car. I put them in the seat and said, "Here's how it works. Do not touch the gas pedal." And I cranked up the idle so that when they put it in drive, they just lifted their foot off the brake pedal. So all they used was the brake pedal to begin with. And then as they got a little more familiar with using just the brake pedal, scooting around the parking lot, we ended up doing the gas pedal as well. That's always interesting because the gas pedal is the opposite of the brake pedal, and it takes a little while to figure that out.
Yes. And Dan mentions in the comments too, you could be stuck somewhere needing to know how to drive a stick, or else you got to walk and get help or whatever. So everybody should learn how to drive a stick. We should start an academy.
A stick academy.
Stick academy. Learn how to drive a stick, and there'll all be just crappy like Hyundais to learn on, because we're not going to use because we're going to go through like 9 clutches a month.
I tell you what.
Wait a minute. What a great name for a show.
I'll tell you what.
Clutch Academy.
The Clutch Academy. Do the research, Dan. I think what you'd find out is that it is hard to find a manual transmission anything anymore. It is very, very difficult to find them for sale. You have to, and when you do find them, they tend to be cars that are not going to be cheap. People have realized that they're valuable. They're saving them up. Whereas they used to be everywhere, you buy a Toyota Tercel and it came with a manual gearbox and roll down windows. So they're a lot harder to find now.
Yeah. And the one thing I've never done 3 on a tree. I've never worked that yet. So at some point I'll have to do 3 on a tree.
My 50 Chrysler had 3 on a tree. My 49 Chrysler Windsor convertible, also 3 on the tree. And then they had fluid drive, which had a clutch that you could engage for first gear. And then once you were moving out in first gear, you'd shift it down and then you were in drive and off you would go. But boy, that was a big car with a automatic transmission, and coming out of the hole out of a traffic light, bicycles would pass you.
Adam did say he will sign up for the class. No one's had the patience to teach him. So maybe the Clutch Academy needs to become a thing.
Yeah, we'll open the Clutch Academy.
Yeah, get your third pedal certificate.
There you go.
Certified in third pedal. Speaking of old cars, oh my goodness, I can't believe what time it is already.
Wow.
I know, right? Let me look at it. The day has gone by so quickly. It's time to go old school with Raffi.
All right, everybody. Today we're going old school, and both Dan and I love BMW, and BMW has made some amazing cars over the years, but probably the most interesting car, and one that we're going to old school today, is the BMW Isetta. This car is so unusual in so many ways, you can't even believe that it exists. Now, the Isetta was first developed by ISO, and ISO was a small Italian company that manufactured them in small numbers and then eventually licensed the Isetta idea to a number of different companies. And BMW was the company that bought the license and ended up manufacturing over 100,000 of these cars. Small, compact is, boy, an understatement when you think about it, because if you parked an Isetta next to a small car today, it takes up about half the space. These will fit inside the trunk of a large Chrysler from the 60s. They'll go into the back of an average pickup truck. And most interesting thing you can see here, now this is an early series one. You want to get the BMW one that is later series. And the BMW ones, as well as this particular design, you see there's no door on the side. Well, how do you get into it? You open the front of the car. So the entire front of the car clamshells open. And when it opens up, the steering wheel tips forward so you can get around the steering column to get inside the car. Believe it or not, you can get 2 people inside one of these cars. And the engine, you can see the vent along the side there. The engine is in sort of the middle portion of the car, and it is basically a scooter or motorcycle engine. So this is a 2-wheel enclosed scooter, basically. But fabulous little car. You don't want to certainly go fast in one of them, but they came with all sorts of fun little features, including a rollback sunroof, so you could get inside, close it up, pull back that sunroof, and go out for a nice drive. They were 4-wheel vehicles, so you had 2 stable wheels in the back, even though the design tapered towards the rear. Headlights, turn indicators, side glass that you could roll back and hang your hand out the window, pay tolls. Top speed in one of the Isettas might be 50, 52 miles an hour, but that would be a heck of a hill. So fantastic little cars, wonderful, inexpensive. You can buy and restore them. They're fairly simple to work on. They have some exotic parts, but a lot of the parts are available today from specialty manufacturers, and they're not super expensive. You might pay $10,000 to $15,000 for one that is complete, that needs restoration, and you might pay for a beautifully restored one, $35,000 to $40,000 for really something that's unusual. But there you go. The BMW Isetta, Dan has pulled one up there, and you can see the current bid on this one is 20,000, Dan?
22,222.
Yeah, and so it's got some time still to go, but really clever little cars, fun, unique, interesting, and you can tell people that you have a vintage BMW.
These are crazy cars. I've seen one or two in person before, and they're tiny.
They are tiny, and you've got a single tone car here, your example, but they did come as two-tone with some really neat M&M candy type colors. It's not a plush car. You're going to feel the road when you're driving for sure, but it's a fun car that you can have a lot of, again, you take it to a show, you're not going to see yourself coming. And you get a really nice one. This one looks like it's a nice combination of original and restored. This one will probably close out at around $30,000. And the great thing about the Isetta is you can have a 2-car garage. It can be filled with 2 cars, and there'll still be room to park your Isetta inside.
Yeah, it says it looks like the precursor to the VW Beetle, but the Beetle was actually before this, was it not?
The Beetle came out about the same time. I think 53 was the first Isetta by ESO. So the Beetle was out already, 52 to 53 being the first sort of major Volkswagen production. So about the same time. This is quite a bit smaller than the Beetle. And the Beetle could house up to 4 people. The Isetta was strictly a 2-person vehicle, though you could get 3 people in there. I drove one with a friend of mine, and the 2 of us and my young daughter were inside. So you can get 3 inside, but really 2 people is more than enough. Again, they're not fast cars. They take some getting used to driving around, but if you're looking for a fun car that holds its value, absolutely, these are continue to be sought after because they're unique and unusual, but they will hold their value. You can have a lot of fun with them. And again, very easy to maintain. They're scooters, basically, scooter motors, very, very simple, very basic, and lots of fun.
And speaking of our Bring a Trailer moment for the week, I want to bring up the one that you were involved in this week.
Yeah.
You had this beautiful,
yes, indeed,
1900-mile anniversary edition Thunderbird.
Yeah, just a gorgeous, gorgeous car. Essentially a brand new car, beautifully maintained. With the 2 tops, the hard top and the soft top, low miles, gorgeous undercarriage. And these typically sell for 20 to 25,000. A really nice one might be 28, 29,000. But because this is one of 1,500, the 50th anniversary limited edition, this was number 1179, virtually no miles, 1,900 miles, and drives beautifully, fabulous car, sold for $42,250. And
Wow.
that, I believe, is a record price for a Thunderbird on a late series Retrobird on Bring a Trailer.
And it's almost sticker price.
Almost sticker price. Sticker was 44.
That's amazing. 44,985.
Yeah.
I mean, that is unreal to get that for an 05.
For an 05.
It's not even a classic yet.
Yep.
But yeah, that is a gorgeous car, and congratulations to you and your seller. And gorgeous car.
Yeah, and the buyer was very, very pleased to get the car. So fabulous car. And again, this is a car that they're just not going to make anymore. You're not going to see this car in the future because 2-seat luxury cars like this just no longer have a strong enough market to justify the making of them. So the only way to get a car like this, which is, in my opinion, one of the best cars to get, because you have a car like this in your driveway and it just encourages you to go drive, to have some adventures, to load up a couple duffel bags in the trunk and drive up the coast, take a weekend somewhere. It encourages that kind of life that if you've been able to collect up a little bit of extra means and you have the opportunity and maybe some time, especially as we come out of the pandemic period, it's a great way to enjoy, see America, on the roads, and enjoy a very, very nice car in the process.
Yeah. And now the person that bought it, they're going to drive it, or they're going to keep it low mileage and store it and make it a collector's piece?
Don't know yet. We'll find out. We'll have some conversations about what they intend to do and go from there.
All right. Well, congratulations on that. I love checking all the different cars that you have on Bring a Trailer. And I also love looking at all the cars on Bring a Trailer. It's quite an amazing site. If you haven't been there, go check it out. No, them sponsor, but it is a fun site for car lovers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Buyers, sellers, or whatever. Well, it's been an hour. We've spent our hour together. We've talked about wheels. We've talked about cars with doors in the front. We've talked about classics being, holy crap, only 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Adam even mentioned in the comments he saw a Toyota 4Runner with collector's plates on it and got a good laugh. A 4Runner.
Yeah.
I think we've talked what we need to talk about for this week. If you have any other questions during the week, you can send them to our Facebook page at Clutch Radio Show, and we will try to answer them during the next show. If you're listening to the podcast, tune into the live show. It's so much more fun to interact with you, and you can put comments in and say hello, and that's always fun.
And we want to thank Dan and thank Adam and of course Ray for comments today.
And Jake had an early comment. He had a good morning Clutch Radio comment.
Good morning to Jake, and thank you, Jake, for the anniversary donuts.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah.
If you're on Bainbridge Island at any time in the near future and you want donuts, Jake's pickup right on High School Road. Friday mornings he makes donuts.
And if you miss the donuts, Saturday you get cinnamon rolls, and I don't know which is better, the cinnamon roll or the donut. They're both.
And then there's the Skonuts.
And Skonuts as well. And if you're really hungry, man, does he make a good pork sandwich. The barbecued pork sandwich is unbelievable. And also, if you want pizza, the pizza he makes is unbelievable as well. It's pretty much everything Jake makes is fantastic. That guy is an artist. Absolutely.
He's a food artist.
Yeah.
Raffi's anniversary is a big block. 427. That's your anniversary.
That's it. Big block. 427.
There you go. Did you pick that on purpose?
Yes, that was intentional. It was either going to be 426 or 427. And I thought, it's tough because I'm both a Chrysler and a Ford guy. So I picked it, and it was important to pick a number I could remember.
Yeah. So again, not sponsors, but check out Bring a Trailer, check out Jake's pickup, and lots of fun things happening in the future. And now we're in the spring. So now it's, we're cleaning out cars and having fun, and reconditioning things. And if you have a topic you want to talk about next week, just by all means. I mean, today's topic came because my friend wanted to talk about his wheel situation. So you never know what the topic will be.
Yeah. And we really wanted to do it.
We really did. Oh, geez, Raffi. All right.
It's that guy's fault. It's not my fault.
Dad jokes, right? All right. See you next time. Bye.
See ya.